What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Here, guys, Derek and Cody with you. Guys, we're going to talk Adonai Mitchell. How did Adonai Mitchell fall to number 52 in the 2024 NFL Draft? And how in the world did the NFL allow this amazing, potentially great wide receiver to fall into the hands of the Indianapolis Colts in the second round? But before we get into that, just wanted to mention a couple things, guys. This episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. And also for those who have signed up, just want to say Prize Picks has a new free square that is going to be used for Caitlin Clark's debut game, which is actually this upcoming Tuesday, May 14th. It's going to be between the Indiana Fever versus the Connecticut Suns. Game at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern. Says if Caitlin Clark were to get more than 1 point, then the square wins. There is a timer on this square, so make sure you guys add it to your lineup before the timer ends. So be sure to check that out, guys. Also, just want to say one more thing. I know a lot of people have been asking on the streams and whatnot, when are we getting breadstick stuff? Well, here's the shirt, guys. The Bring the Juice breadsticks.
Bring the breadsticks,
fantastic shirt made by my wonderful girlfriend. You got the little breadsticks down here. Obviously, Bring the Juice breadsticks. So listen, I know a couple of you guys absolutely love that. So if you guys are wanting a shirt like this, feel free to message me or Cody or either one of us, and we'll be able to get you a shirt design for that. So
hey man, you changed the juice to some grape juice, and you got communion right there with the breadsticks.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. You know what? That's funny. I'm surprised I didn't think of that, but here we are. Anyways, back to this actual video here, guys. Well, I mean, one of the biggest storylines, Cody, for the NFL draft was about Adonai Mitchell and how this elite prospect of a wide receiver, based on what most people say, was a graded first-round wide receiver and then fell all the way to the back end of the second round of the draft and fell into the hands of the Indianapolis Colts. There was a lot going into it, and a lot of people were watching it in real time and being like, why is this guy falling? And, I mean, Cody, what was your reaction to Adonai Mitchell being the 11th wide receiver taken in this draft? I mean, we're sitting here a few weeks after the draft still talking about it, but I mean, what happened there? What do you think happened?
That's a great question. I feel like there was just so many things, so much smoke that was coming out of the AD Mitchell camp. Now, in terms of, was I surprised? I was definitely surprised that he's, like you mentioned, the 11th wide receiver taken. Because, I mean, we talked about this before, Derek, but we'll say it again. Like, there was people saying he's a borderline, first-round pick. You got, obviously, your big 3-4 wide receivers. And then A.D. Mitchell's right in that conversation for that fifth wide receiver, with some of those guys that went well before him, including his teammate, Xavier Worthy, who went at the end of the first round, right? And people were even saying A.D. Mitchell has a higher potential than a Xavier Worthy. Obviously, Xavier Worthy, we know he's got that elite speed, but A.D. Mitchell's just got a different type of combination. He's athletic, he's fast, he's quick, he's strong, he's big, right? And that was something with, obviously, Worthy's weighing 165 pounds. So, like, all those things, I was surprised that he fell. Maybe not necessarily the first round, because like we talked about, especially, with some of those players who got taken earlier than we all expected. Obviously, the quarterbacks being that, but then a few other players that you're a little bit surprised that got taken a little bit early. I know especially, like, I think of, the Arizona Cardinals and what they did with Darius Robinson in the first round. I mean, very few people, I think, had Darius Robinson as a first-round pick. He was probably more of a day 2 pick. So, like, players like that we just didn't expect necessarily to go in round 1, and that continued to just push down players like A.D. Mitchell, right, in round 2. So, initially, if it went the way that we probably all thought, and there was only 3 or 4 quarterbacks taken in round one, I would have been even more shocked. But I guess I was less shocked because of just that. But also, I was shocked that Mitchell lasted as long as he did in the second round for Indianapolis. Because remember, Indy didn't have necessarily like a top pick in the second round, and they even traded down a couple spots.
Yeah, they traded down
in round two. You talk about pick 52. So I mean, what, Derek? If 32 picks, you do the math there. I mean, that's a mid-second round guy right there, where AD Mitchell got picked. So I was definitely surprised that he did fall all the way down there, because you do kind of think, there's got to be a team that's just going to bet on that talent a little bit earlier, right? Because we talked about the talent is unquestionable with AD Mitchell. It was just a lot of that smoke that was coming out. So was very surprised, but, I think in terms of what happened, I think, we've seen that with different prospects where it almost just seems like and Chris Ballard, obviously we know, Derek, how very, he took it very personally for a guy like Adonai Mitchell. He was very much in the corner of AD Mitchell when it came to this. But, we pick apart prospects so much that I think it's almost like things start to come up that maybe aren't even concerns, but potentially become red flags for teams that when you look back, you're like, I can't believe that was a red flag. I mean, how many guys has that happened to, Derek, where, initially they're like, oh yeah, they're a slam dunk, I mean, heck, we even saw it with, some of the other players who were like, oh, they're a slam dunk round one guy, and they fall to day two, right? We see that happen all the time. Or even guys just completely falling later on in the draft. So, I mean, that's what I would say is my best guess, is that there was all these reports coming out, these different reports, right? They weren't all the same reports. There was different things. And then obviously we saw what, Rappaport had said as well during that, prospect as well, right around the draft. So it just seemed like there was a lot of smoke, and maybe some teams were just like, we don't even want to go into the weeds with that. And so we're going to take this guy. We're going to take Alad McConkey, or we're going to take insert whoever there in round number 2. So for me, maybe that's kind of the best reason I can come up with, because other than that, it makes zero sense to me that a player of AD Mitchell's potential would fall as far as he did.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, college basketball, other entries like that today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So, for example, for basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game and does not return in the second half of a game, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays alive. As you guys obviously know, NBA playoffs are going on right here, right now. Of course, I'm following the Pacers and the Knicks very, very closely. Be sure to download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Yeah, and I'm going to reference to a article written by Stephen Holder at ESPN quite often here, because it gives a really good insight to kind of what we had already been told, but gives a little bit more in-depth understanding of it. So if you guys want to check out that article, I highly suggest you do it. Holder does have a really good article here about it. What was the first thing, Cody, that we heard about, AD Mitchell falling? Was, people were saying that he didn't interview well, right? And there were questions about like his attitude towards the game and things like that. And, it was comments like that got Ballard all hyped up, as you mentioned, with that presser. You and I, reacted to that presser the same way the whole world did. And we were like, wow, okay, Ballard, go off. Like, I mean, because
right.
He sat in the room with a guy, I'm sure, I mean, the Colts staff all sat in the room with AD Mitchell talking about his life, talking about his game, talking about, how he interviews. And they felt extremely strongly the opposite direction of which the report was actually coming out. Was he misunderstood by some other people? It's quite possible. Maybe some other teams didn't like the way he broke things down. That's not necessarily a fault on AD Mitchell per se. That could be just on maybe the other teams are asking the wrong questions. Maybe they're asking it in a way that AD Mitchell just didn't quite understand, or maybe didn't quite get it. Things like that. I will say this, Cody, we heard the rumor about how, he has type 1 diabetes and that he doesn't take care of himself very well. Holder goes into that actually here, and it says that he does actually have type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed since he was 16. So, I mean, this is something that he's been dealing with for many years now, right? So he's had difficulty staying on track, but they said that's a common problem with a lot of diabetics, and it's not something that's unique to AD Mitchell, but he has taken steps to helping to fix that. He actually just recently hired a private chef and is adhering to a nutritional plan to help keep him more on the straight and narrow when it comes to his diabetes work, which is a great thing to have. But as you and I said from the get-go, that obviously whatever concerns there were about AD Mitchell that other teams had, it clearly did not impact the Indianapolis Colts enough for them to not want to make this pick, because they felt that with the locker room culture that they have, that whatever problem he potentially may have coming into the NFL, they felt confident that they could get him straightened out. And with the guys around him, they felt comfortable taking that risk.
Yeah. And I would say, Derek, obviously you always have those few players where, crap happens. But I mean, when you look at Chris Ballard from his first draft to, I guess the last draft, he's had a pretty good track history when it comes to character. Like a lot of these guys have actually become very high character guys, right?
Yes.
I mean, really, you think about what Ogletree's the only one where you're kind of like, that was a Colts draft pick. You're kind of like, oh boy. But again, he's still on the team and they feel comfortable with that situation. Now, again, we'll get it. That's neither here or there. We're not going to get into that. But what I'm saying is the Colts have a pretty good track record. So that makes me think that their process is very good, right? When it comes to scouting character. I mean, gosh, that's been their emphasis for so many years. That's actually been a criticism that people have had of the Colts, is like, they'd rather get, I think I've heard people call them like the choir boys, the guys that are basically like the goody two shoes. You know what I mean? Like, and people's criticism is like, you got to take a risk on some guys, right? That have the elite talent, right? So in terms of that is probably the least of my concern, is the Colts process here when it comes to evaluating players and their character. So I don't feel too bad about that, to be honest with you, because the Colts have done a pretty good job of gauging that in their process. Again, you can never hit, an 100. You can never fully know what's going to happen. But for the most part, the Colts have done their due diligence and done it very, very well when it comes to these guys. And you mentioned it. AD Mitchell definitely has a great situation that he's coming into with the Colts, with Reggie Wayne, a former great for the Colts, the wide receiver coach. He's obviously going to be a guy that's going to be able to take, AD Mitchell under his wing and really mentor him as a former receiver himself. You obviously have Michael Pittman Jr., very high character guy that the Colts are going to be able to have come in and mentor a guy like AD Mitchell as well. And you got a couple other guys that you really like in that wide receiver room as well. Although they're a little bit younger, they still have a lot of good character there. And it's kind of interesting. Like the Colts have now taken two guys back-to-back years who slid in the draft and who are not happy about it. So I think that's kind of interesting. Hopefully the Colts, Josh Downs and AD Mitchell can connect over that. I think they will. I think they'll be just fine. And also AD Mitchell, like you mentioned as well, he's getting on this nutritional plan. He has a plan in place now. I don't know if he did or not, when he was younger, even last year. Maybe that's part of the problem, but he has just so much more at his disposal now being a pro than he ever did in college. I mean, he really does. So hopefully that can help him kind of get on that track if he's maybe been off that track when it comes to handling, his diabetes and things like that. And so I'm really hoping and really looking forward to that now he kind of has a plan in place so that he can be the best version of himself that he wants to be, right? So definitely early signs, like you mentioned, are very positive for AD Mitchell, which is definitely great. But we'll see, man. I'm really intrigued to see kind of how he fits into this wide receiver room. A lot of guys that honestly, Derek, are not afraid to speak up and speak their minds. I mean, gosh, we've seen Pittman on the field. Pittman's more of a quiet guy off the field. When he's on the field, man, it's go time. And I love that. So the Colts got a lot of feisty wide receivers, which is definitely awesome to see. And I think he's going to fit in just fine with this wide receiver room. But yeah, man, looking forward to how motivated he comes out this year, because we know Josh Downs was freaking motivated last year. And well, look what happened. He broke the Colts receiving record in terms of receptions last year. So I'm not saying AD Mitchell's going to do that, but it's very clear there were similar vibes to AD Mitchell where, I mean, the first thing when they asked him how he's feeling, he said, I'm honestly kind of pissed off right now. So that's a good news. That's a very good thing because he's very motivated to come in and prove all the haters wrong. That's still wild to me. The 11th best wide receiver, according to the NFL, when it came to where he was selected. And I think he definitely has the potential to be a lot better than the 11th wide receiver taken. So really excited to see kind of what he has going for him here in year number one. Here's what number he's going to get. That's not on topic here, but I'm really curious because we've seen all these other guys that have started to get their numbers, and maybe by the time this goes out, we'll actually know his number. I'm hoping for the number 0 because I think that would look so clean on AD Mitchell. But anyway, yeah, really excited for AD Mitchell, and I think the fit here with the Colts is pretty seamless, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, last piece that I'll throw out here when it comes to AD Mitchell for anyone else that is concerned about character and whatnot. I mean, all you got to do is just ask old coach Sarkisian, the Texas head coach. I mean, all you have to do is really ask him about how he's done things. And in the last bit of Holder's article here, they asked him, like, describe a moment that would best describe Mitchell's personality. And Sarkisian's answer was revealing. And it was and immediately started talking about Mitchell's relationship with his daughter, and said the way he takes care of his daughter and the compassion and love that he has for her. I think that's exactly who he was in our locker room and our team. He's a compassionate guy, a family-oriented guy. He loves to feel the love, but he also likes to give love. And I think that's a sign of a really good teammate in the character that he has. And listen, there's a lot of dudes in Indianapolis that have been having kids over the last several years. So believe me, they get it. They understand how to be family-oriented guys and know how to balance that and know what it takes to be dads while at the same time being able to have a football career. So, I mean, again, Sarkisian has nothing but good things to say about AD Mitchell. And I think he's honestly, I mean, Cody, if everything is correct the way they're talking about it, I mean, I feel like he's just going to fit right in with the Indianapolis squad, to be completely honest. I mean, he's a lot like the rest of these guys here. You know, a young dad that's got something to prove here in the NFL. And I mean, I think it's a great situation he's falling into.
The Colts, like if there's like one organization in the NFL that I would say is like a family organization, the Colts certainly fall into that category. I mean, the Colts are a family franchise. I mean, gosh, the Ursays, like, so it's just perfect, when it comes to this family oriented type of team, franchise, and player. I think it's a great fit, like you mentioned, in addition to the other players who obviously have young children as well who are raising families themselves. So yeah, perfect situation on the field, but also off the field for AD Mitchell and his family.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much. Let us know your thoughts on AD Mitchell and why he potentially fell the way that he did. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the recent support. And as always, guys, go Colts.